All right, so we are beginning today's conversation with Kate. I just hit record,
Okay.
and hopefully my audio is going to work. And I am here with the most amazing Bryonie Wise, who I am so honored to have this time. Oh my goodness. Um, some of you might have heard me wax poetic and more about going to Rise, a poetic revolution back in October. Bryony was one of the three co-leaders of that workshop out in Chicago. They're doing it again in April. Um, they're saving a space for me, but otherwise you should go. If you feel drawn to it, you should go. All right. So, Bryony, let's see. She teaches yoga, but that's not all of it. There's something about Bryony. So when I met her, I felt like um, I had I had read so many beautiful words and seen so many images and so much truth, so much raw truth that I didn't know how it was going to be to meet you in person. And when I met Bryony, it was like this. There was no space between our hearts. It felt like it wasn't just kindred. It was like just a feeling of yes, like yes, yes, recognition, yes. And that's just how I feel, Bryony. I mean, I know we don't really actually know each other, but in the ways that we know each other, I just have this feeling of, really sweet, tender closeness, kindred, something, something like that. Um, and the other piece that I want to speak at this point is that, and I will put up Bryony's contact information as always. But there's this channeling that she does of messages, truths, prayer, information that's so pure and so powerful. It's like earth shaking. God, it's just like wow. So when we're gonna close out today with a prayer at the end because there's something about the way that Bryony is hooked into the universe that is just a special gift to us all. So I want to make sure we spend some time on that. But so one of the ways that you may have seen Bryony online, and I spend most of my time on Facebook, not on Instagram and other platforms, and I don't actually spend as much time on Facebook as I used to because it was triggering the heck out of all of my anxious parts. So I'm like, ha ha ha, I'll just visit. I'll just visit. I'm not gonna live here. Um, but there's lots of truth about being in body, being embodied, being. And right now, Bryony is literally in the midst of a move. And so I'm the reason I'm smiling and pointing at you is you have this home, right? It just says home on it, and it's so I was gonna provoke this. Home is Toronto for
Yeah.
Bryony, so Toronto people seek this lady out in real life. Um, but I was gonna provoke this conversation with questions about practice and specifically about the practice of letting go. There's been this thing happening for Bryony as she's moving where there's as you go to move you first have to let go, and some of that letting go is stuff you do and some of it is stuff that is letting go of you. So I just wanted to sort of maybe start there, and then I would love it if as we talk about that right before we started to record, Bryony, you mentioned this idea of sort of the creative urge happening at this time when you can't let it out. It's like what is so I'd love it if we could kind of weave some of those things together, but let's just see what happens. So
So, well, it's like everything is the same thing, but it's all different at the same time.
yeah.
So, I think it took me some time to settle into this tiny space. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was a recovery space. It was a splitting up from a really long term relationship that I thought was sort of my forever relationship
Mm.
in any way that they can be that.
Mm.
And this was the space that we moved into at the time. It was myself and my dog Winston and our two cats, which are no longer with us. We lost them both last year.
Oh.
And we moved into this space that was way more money than I really can afford to spend, but it had a little patio and it was the nicest little space.
Mm.
And as I think as we do whenever we're sort of recovering or figuring out who we are after something tremendous has died, whether it's a person or a relationship or whatever that is, it's like trying to figure out who we are now.
Yes.
And because, you know, often the expression is that I just want to get back to who I was, and that person no longer exists after some of these deaths. You're no longer that person, and you can't ever be. There are shards of yourself that you can call into the person you are now, but I can't be that person because this is who I am now. So this place really held me down in a lot of ways. The containment of the space sort of kept a lot of the deeper heart work sacred, and not easy, but sort of held this space for me to get into the guts of you know, what really would I want in relationship, like the truth of the matter, you know. When like I think there's a lot of fear around the thing before it happens, the breaking of something, and then you're broken, and then there are a lot of things to look at and to feel through, and it's like, just as you sort of, or I piece myself together, it's like, what comes with me and what do I leave behind? And this idea of sacred home and sacred space is, you know, something that has grown with me as I've grown in this space. And there are times, you know, when I step out, like a year ago, I went to visit one of my closest friends in Hawaii, and I felt like I could breathe because I could stretch out, and I came home and I felt like, oh my God, I have to cram everything back up into this tiny home. And I just want to be like that freedom. And so then, you know, I think sometimes we shy away from those uncomfortable places of like, I really just want my wings to spread. I want a bigger space. I want more light. And that's not possible. This is what I have right now. And so where in myself can I find a place to be where I am? You know? And not dismiss the feelings, like not ignore them and not sort of cram them down, like let them live in the space where you're like, this is what we have. And so we're just going to live this way. And I think, so another part of this sort of holiness was some time ago. So when I moved into this place, I had to shed a lot of material things. I had, in a previous life, I made books. And so I had like, it was insane. Like there were more books in here. They took up more space than anything else. It just things we collect to remember who we were, right? In those moments, we so the things that are the trophies of the people we once were in, the experiences, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of that I chose to actually give away. And the magical art of tidying up, you know, that book that was sort of Kapow everybody. I did that process where it really helped me sort of connect with the things in my home where I felt like I actually touched everything and felt into like, you know, does this spark joy? And
wow.
Well, like when you can get quiet enough to feel that, it's actually remarkable. For me, my experience was how much less I needed, like how big that joy was from fewer objects. And so the letting go of being somewhere, I think as I grow older, you know, the beginning of something is always terribly exciting. Somewhere in the middle, I tend to get lost sometimes. You know, I think we all can be in that place where it's like, we're so excited to take this course. And then the third week we're like, oh God, I have to get myself out of the house to go to the thing, you know? And then by the end, there's like this renewed appreciation. And I think what I'm trying to cultivate in the letting go of this home, like I feel I'm trying to find the words. It's like, I feel really in this space, a presence of God in a way that I'd not experienced before. So in my spiritual practice and my belief system and who I'm always becoming, I have this experience with spirit. And I feel like in order for me to really make sure I've cut all of the ties, so anything that processed in this space, anything that no longer needs to come on the next steps needs a proper farewell.
So beautiful.
So sitting with the goodbyes. So I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but
no,
the process of goodbye. like the sacredness of that, and like
Yeah.
the taking time with it. And you know uh I feel like these are things sometimes we practice with ourselves in our relationship with our homes or our material objects or whatever it is, and we do it within, and hopefully it becomes something that I do now in relationship. Like when a
Yeah.
friendship falls apart, wouldn't it be a fantastic way to have an ending that's honoring, that really
Mm.
just like, you know, the hurt can be there if it needs to be there, but
Mm.
there's a forgiveness. Like there's a reverence for the goodbye.
Yeah. See, I think this is so beautiful because you talk about so many different things on so many different levels here. I don't even know which pieces I want to respond to first, but it feels like one of the most important pieces is this perpetual becoming, right? I mean, there are moments when we feel like we've reached some sort of steady state, but even in those moments, we're still moving. I mean, we're still moving, we're still becoming. Things are still changing. It's a, it's so um, even taking a moment just to honor that is a different way of looking at being, because I think, be here now is very now, but there's this being, this process that's actually happening all the time, and becoming and letting go, and wow, the way you speak about it is so eloquent.
I think too, Mercury just moved out of retrograde. And I think that we all
Thank
have
God.
periods where we feel like we're in that place where it's like
Mm-hmm.
nothing is budging,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little like we're spinning, like a teeny tiny little hamster that maybe got really cute feet. Like we're in our wheel, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Okay, like you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
So be in it. Like the letting go comes there too. That's the becoming as well. The becoming is not always a moving, shifting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Often it is, but every now and then we find this little pocket that
Mm-hmm.
has just this little air that keeps us just enough to survive.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving into. I've been reading bits and pieces, and the feeling that I'm sort of, if I excuse me, get really quiet, is like Blue Monday. The third Monday of January is called Blue Monday because it feels like that's when everybody sort of drops into this depression
Mm-hmm.
of winter. And even in that place, as hard as it is sometimes to find the little sort of peeps of light, it's like even in that place, like what are the tools?
Mm-hmm.
You're sinking in.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you can feel yourself. You sort of thought you leaped over the rabbit hole, but you got stuck and you're half in, half out.
Yeah.
And there's this sense of the being,
Mm-hmm.
even in this place of unmoving,
Mm-hmm.
even in this place that feels a little like we can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a practice too. And I was, every now and then it comes up in conversation, this sense of, oh, things are really hard and then things get really good. And why do they have to be so hard? And it's like, if we're always in summer, we forget the blessing it is. Like we
Mm-hmm.
start to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's like this gratitude that sort of slips away because we get so used to it. And so to have these pockets of winter, of darkness,
Mm-hmm.
of sadness, like this is the experience.
Mm-hmm.
This is the experience of being alive. We don't know if it's the experience of death. We have no idea.
Right.
Right now, who knows? Maybe it's the same. I don't know.
I think there's this idea of sort of fallow seasons, right? The times of gathering, of root growth, of things going down and in rather than up and out. And I recognize that in my own creative practice, where there's times when it's really about gathering, and those times of gathering can feel so stagnant, but it's not. It's an incredibly active time. I'm gathering, right? I'm gathering. um, but it doesn't feel active because it's not productive. I'm not putting words out, I'm not putting paintings out. I'm gathering, and I'm distilling, and I'm letting things shift in their subtle sort of subterranean ways.
It's the alchemy.
Yeah.
Like sometimes that stillness allows all of the
Mm-hmm.
ingredients to start shifting and moving together in this way that sometimes for me feels like um, it's like this it's like a uh, it's like a sacred geometric map that sort
Mm.
of floats around of the pieces, and in that place they come together, and then they're either click in, and that becomes part of an idea or a few words in a sentence or a few
Mm-hmm.
colors on a palette or whatever that is, or sometimes they don't quite fit together so they float apart again,
Mm-hmm.
and then they rearrange themselves. Like that place of creative process of the not doing is, there's actually so much happening, you know.
Yeah.
I go through periods, and there was, I'm going to say, even longer than a year. It's even longer than that. Like the it feels like I'm not writing anything because
Yeah.
it's not coming out in the same format it used to come out in.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
still moving, but it's not moving in the way that I grew accustomed to and comfortable
Oh,
with,
yeah, yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like the refiddling and the refinessing, and it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this also, the expression of my creativity also shifts how it leaves,
Mm-hmm.
how the messages come in and translate, and how I transmit them out shifts. Like there's this like safety, I think, in everything remaining the same and
Yeah.
consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not been my experience
I was
with
gonna say, but nothing does.
like that. That's not my experience with emotion, with creativity, with the expression, with my yoga practice, with anything. The
uh,
consistency is the dedication. Like yesterday,
yes.
Instagram. Wednesdays are traditionally, for me, I've made my day off, and I try at least to have the morning unplugged.
Mm-hmm.
Like, some weeks it feels harder, and I realized this morning it's like, I feel sometimes through the social media portals, like it's community.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
community and connectivity sometimes.
Yep.
And so sometimes if I'm feeling like I can't quite do the in-person thing here, but I can do this kind of, I'm partially in person and part not, it's a portal to, like, I'm still here. Are you still out there?
Yeah. It's the
I
Marco
wonder.
Polo.
Yeah, this,
Yeah.
oh, here I am. But, so the
Mm-hmm.
commitment to unplugging,
Mm-hmm.
to actually taking that part away and like being in the experience, like that's where the consistency in our practices, which
Mm-hmm.
also has to shift.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whew.
Woo,
Woo.
baby. So, it's interesting. You posted something on Facebook the other day of you in downward facing dog and in stillness, and one of the things that struck me was just how much movement there is in stillness, right? And anyone who's ever done yoga, there's like a million micro movements that you do. So, some of them are balance, some of them just shifting away from tightness, or shifting because you think you're going to die, depending on who you are and how you do yoga. Like, um, but this feeling of like the micro adjustments in our everything that we don't even know we're doing. And again, this goes to the less big moves. It's all these little adjustments that help us navigate time and space and states of being. I just think it's so interesting how many of the things we're talking about can be applied to like so many different aspects of being human, being a being. um, that it's so interesting because it's creativity, it's relationships, it's becoming, it's all of these things, and it's so beautiful because I think that this is the kind of thing that almost anybody listening to your beautiful words is going to be able to connect and say, yes, me too. It may not be during my downward facing dog that this occurs. However, I get it. I get that.
As you were describing, I had a visual come in, and this
Mm-hmm.
happens every now and then again when I teach. Like, I can see an element in nature which feels like the experience. So as you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
even in stillness, there's this little bit of movement, and yet in that little clip, like even when I looked at it, I was like, even in my downward, there's like these tiniest little movements.
Mm-hmm.
The smallest things can feel like revolution.
Yeah.
But the image I had, and I think, I don't know if it's the full moon and the watery and everything, it's like, deep in the ocean, these sort of little sea plants that just like as the current goes, they're still, and then they have a little bit of that sort of undulation to them. That's stillness to me, where there's something happening that we can't quite put a word on, like there's not quite language for it, because I think that we haven't created one yet.
Yeah. Or the language is just a different language. It's a feeling language. It's a non-symbolic language. Okay, so I have one more thing to share, and then I'd love it if you would close with a prayer, and then I will release you back into the wild. But you need to stay on after I hit stop. But once upon a time, my grandparents lived near the ocean in Connecticut. Now, this was a family property we'd had since no one wanted to live there, right? So we lost it when everyone wanted to live there. But there was this moment, it was the Long Island Sound, so it's the waterway between Connecticut's shore and Long Island. So it's an embraced water space, even though it's huge. But one day it froze. And I remember looking out and having the water not move, at least not on the surface. The water was frozen. Now, there's a perpetual movement that happens, right, with oceans. And it can change. It can be very, 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 very smooth. It can be incredibly rough. But there's always some amount of movement. But in that moment, Bryonie, it was still. And it was so incredibly weird. It was so uncomfortable. It was glorious and really disturbing. I mean, it was so many different things, but that's when I realized that sort of this familiarity with this micro movement, this perpetual movement, that was part of my vocabulary of being there, right? And all of a sudden, this huge piece of my experience of being near the water was literally stopped. Yeah. So it was missing, and it just was the strangest feeling. It was the strangest feeling. And as you were talking, I just suddenly thought of that, that moment where you turn the corner and look at the ocean, and instead of having it be oceany, it's being something else. It's like, what? What happened there? Yeah. It was really amazing. Okay, so.
That feels like winter in a way.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are in the world and what your weather is and how it affects you, it's like there is so much happening. But we become foreign to it almost because we're so used to that freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And an expression that's visible that you can, so there's a feedback, right? I see it and it is growing. I see it and it is moving. I see it and it is being and becoming and reacting and responding. And all of a sudden you look out and there's stillness, and all of a sudden you look out and there's quiet. It's like where. And missing the noise and missing the movement is such an interesting thing. I mean, I'm gonna sit with that some more because that's a really interesting space. It's an interesting
that
space.
Also then actually opens up another layer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Of what you can't hear when the ocean is speaking in its waves.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Spine tingles.
I like it. I like thinking about these things. Okay.
All right. Are you ready for the prayer?
Well, as much as I will be. If I burst into tears, just, go with it. Yeah.
Always.
I'm ready.
All right. So I would say just wherever you are, take a big inhale in through the nose and exhale it out through the mouth. And settle down into your seat. So think of your sit bones as really dropping down into the ground. And the visual I have these days is the earth kind of comes up to greet us, that moment where we sort of surrender the weight of our bodies to her. And the spine's reaching up towards the sky. And then if you want to place one hand or two hands on your heart, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. And if you want to leave your eyes open or close them, it doesn't matter. And then one more big inhale in through the nose. And exhale it out through the mouth. And this prayer goes like this. I hereby break all contracts I made, unconsciously and consciously, before I knew the depth of my own spirit. The silent ones, the ones I inherited, passed down and accepted as my own from generation to generation. I hereby sever all ties with that which holds me down and back, unable to see the glimmer of what I know to be true, whether by my own creation or by expectations tied like weights around my ankles by others lost in the sea of their own confused hearts. I hereby reclaim my right to choose how my story unfolds, armed with creativity, a heart made of gold, and reverent humility. I hereby fully accept all of this living and what is yet to come with brash integrity and loving determination. And I hereby swear to use my superpowers for the love of all beings, and I return anything that no longer serves my higher and lower self, or any of the ones caught in between, with gratitude and consciousness. I do this all with love from the great source of my very own beating heart. I declare myself alive.
It just doesn't get any better than that, Bryonie. Bryonie Wise, everyone. I'll put the links in the post. Please stay so I can love on you for one more minute. Oh my goodness gracious. Thank you. 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 Oh.